Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Thank you for stopping by. Today I am going to discuss a couple of questions I've had from people on American locks. The first one comes from a video that's currently not on my site. Depends on when you're viewing this video, but as of the publishing of this video, the video is not on my site, on my channel. I made a lot of lock Tuesday video. I made 5 of them and I scheduled them out over 5 weeks. So this one was supposed to be in 4 weeks, but I didn't schedule it and it went public. And then the next morning I had, I don't know, 4 or 5, 6 comments on it, whatever. So I've since taken it down, but I do want to address one of the questions that was in there. In the video, I mentioned a magnetation actuator, and the person said, what's a magnetation actuator? And that's not exactly how I said it. I said the actuator in the magnetation, referring to this lock body. So basically what it is, don't shake too much, sorry. So this is an American lock. This is also an American lock body, but it has a master lock actuator. So you can see that quarter round portion is in a different position on each of them. And I'm sure most people know that the master lock is timed differently in orientation with the keyway than the American lock is. So if I try to put this American lock core into this with the master lock actuator, I'm going to zoom back out. It's not going to work because of the way the gates are on these plates. It's time difference. So in order to have it in the upright position where it would normally be, the key wouldn't come out. And then if you turn it and pop it open, it won't work. It'll be all out of whack because it's a 90-degree difference in the where these two actuators actually align. So you can't just take a master lock core and throw it into an 1100 body. In fact, I saw somebody that had a magnetation lock. It was on I watched a small section of, I think it was Picking Time, and somebody had one of these magnetation lock bodies, and it's an 1100 body, but they had an American core in it. So whoever had the magnetation took the master lock actuator out and had to put in an American actuator because it did have the American core with the tailpiece aligned as an American. So that means they changed out not just the core, but they changed out the actuator. So I was referring to the magnetation lock by the name that's printed on it, and actually referring to a master lock core. The next thing I wanted to talk about is I sent one of these to Manipulator, and he was picking it and he was explaining the issues with the tensioning. And he said because it's been picked so much that it was worn out and his tensioner was slipping out. But that's not what was happening. And I explained this in a comment, but it may not be that clear. So what happens is with these, when you put the tension wrench in, and I'm going to try to stay in frame, I'm going to zoom in and try to get a really good view of this. So what happens is if I put the tension wrench all the way in, I get a really good grip and it's not going to let go. But what I normally have to do is pull it off of pin 1 just a little bit, and not by much. I'm moving it out maybe a millimeter, maybe millimeter and a half, 2, I don't know. But what happens is when I pull it out, you can see this back corner, the back corner of the tension wrench is now right on the edge of that keyway. So by pulling out just a little bit, you got to have it out just enough, but so it still grips, and it'll slip. And sometimes when I pick, if I push forward, it'll make it like when I'm pushing. Sorry, when I get down here, when I'm pushing, I have to push straight at it. But if I push this way at all, or this way, it'll cause the tension wrench to wiggle and start to work its way out. So these are different. This happens a lot with 410s. People throw the tension wrench out of it, not throw it, it pops out. But that's not because it's worn out. What's happening is, as you can see, there is this little indentation here so that the key can find its way into the keyway easier. On the American lock, it's a lot smaller and definitely not as steep. And also on the top of the keyway, you still have, a couple millimeters of room there. Sorry, I'm trying to stay in the middle and I'm trying to look at the cores at the same time, but there's a lot of room here. But here, on the master lock one, on the 410 core, there's not a lot of room from where it starts in that indentation. So you're losing a lot of purchase area. So when you're picking, sorry for the shakes. Okay, so when you're picking, that balancing act, it comes into play because of the slope and how much tension wrench gets in there. On top of that, these have a stronger spring. And when you get there and you try to push on there, you don't have a lot of purchase. And then when you're trying to push, so when you go to check it, you have to kind of push the tension wrench in against pin 1 and try it. And then you have to take it out a little bit, especially on this one. On the unsprung core, it's not the same because the unsprung master lock, you're not fighting that spring. But on these, you're fighting that spring. So before you go and test it, you've got to be very careful. You got to make sure that tension wrench has solid purchase. Otherwise, it's going to slip. And sometimes I'll pick it out. Sometimes I'll wiggle it out. It just comes out. So it's caused a little bit of marring on that edge. But it still has the same amount of purchase area if you set it right. So the lock wasn't worn out. It's just very very particular about where that tension wrench sits to have enough room. Or as he did, he used a different style of tension wrench and had it grab a little bit different and was able to do it. But there is less area to grab. And I do remember Pickin' Paradise was kind of ranting one day about challenge locks. Some people would actually drill them out like that so that they did have less room to pick. And he considered that kind of cheating, which I think it is too. I mean, eventually you're going to figure out a way to tension it, and usually the pins aren't enough to hold somebody out, so they do that trick of drilling in on the face to reduce the purchase area for the pick or for the tension wrench. But that's what I wanted to address about the American locks there, about these bodies and these cores. So if you're picking a 410, be aware of that you have less purchase area. So it's going to be more of a balancing act. It's going to be very tricky. You still want to use light tension, but when you go to test it, if you don't push, if you've got it set in there properly and you don't push it straight, if you push it out or in a little bit, you're going to wiggle that tension wrench out and you can throw it. So that's one of the things that I learned on there from that. And yeah, last little thing, I made a whole video on this, but Sadistic Picker mentioned how he wished that American locks would have, or master lock would use more like the 410 core. 410s, there's an OSHA standard, and it's not super clear, but there's some stuff about what they want a lotto lock to be, and that's why American lock or master, same thing. They put a little bit more. They put an extra row of pins, and they changed the keyway to make them less pickable because of the OSHA standard. But in general, they don't care about the picking level of their locks. I know a lot of people make a huge deal of it, but they don't care because most people are not picking locks. If you need a more secure lock, you're going to buy a more secure lock. But if you have a storage unit where there's cameras around, generally your lock is going to be safe, or it's going to get cut. And if I were cutting, I'm going to cut the hasp, not the shackle. I'm going to cut if I'm breaking in, I'm going the easiest route. So yeah, and if I had the example I gave to sadistic is if I walked in and I had 2 sheds that were locked with padlocks, and I had to cut into one, or if I had to break in, which one am I going to break into? Well, if there was one that was unlocked, I'm going to get into that one. But if they're both locked, I'm probably going to cut the master lock, not pick it, cut it. But if I have the ability to pick, I'm going to look at the 2 locks. Say the other one is an ABIS. Like I had one of these. I had an ABIS with a closed shackle on it and a really nice lock. A brass one is like $45 on Amazon, so I buy that one because it looks more secure. Well, it's got a Schlage keyway, and me being a picker, am I going to pick the master lock? I can only pick one. Am I going to pick the master lock, or am I going to pick the ABIS with a Schlage keyway? I'm going to pick the Schlage with the ABIS with the Schlage keyway because it's a nicer lock. They care a little bit more, so they must have nicer stuff in there. That's my thought process. So, that's a huge debate about master lock, but I think that mostly comes from Lockpicking Lawyer and Bosnian Bill. But I swear that they pick on those locks because negative comments into a video and bashing a lock like that, it's drama. People want drama, and that gets their clicks up. So whether they truly believe that master lock is bad or whatever, I don't care. It got so overboard on their channels, I stopped watching their channels because that's all they did was started bashing master lock when it was master lock doesn't care. The lock does its job. Most people aren't picking it. In fact, Bosnian Bill had some lady on there that was whining about how her son's bike got stolen because she had this master lock on there. It's supposed to be so great, but it got stolen. My guess is the kid neglected to lock his bike up, but is he going to tell his mom? Oh no, of course he locked his bike up. So that story I think is a bit bogus. But anyway, enough on that rambling and rant. The main thing was that I wanted to talk about, hopefully you stuck around for the beginning part of that, was about the front of these. That was the biggest thing I wanted to talk about, was the 410 keyway and how picking it is a balance. So there you go. Thank you for stopping by. Have a great rest of your day.